Welcome to Film at 50, a podcast that celebrates semi-centennials in the world of cinema. I'm your host, Brian Rowe, and I'm very excited to welcome Robby Weber to the podcast today, the author of the fantastic book, If You Change Your Mind. We're talking today a big one of the big end-of-the-year releases of 1972, The Heartbreak Kid, the romantic comedy directed by Elaine May and written by Neil Simon, and starring Charles Grodin and Sybil Shepherd. Welcome to the podcast, Robby. How are we doing?
Hello, thank you for having me. We're doing great. We're talking rom-coms. I'm excited.
Rom-coms, yes. So, as we talked about before we started recording, there's not a lot of great romantic comedies released in the early part of the 70s. It's a genre that's kind of like in the middle of like, well, we're not quite a screwball comedy anymore. And we're still about a decade and a half away from the movies we love with like Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. And I mean, there's been a couple, like we talked about Harold and Maude. You could say What's Up, Doc with Barbra Streisand from early 72. It's definitely a romantic comedy in terms of like its narrative, but it's more of like a screwball kind of zany comedy that pays tribute to those movies of the 40s. But I would say like the most like romantic comedy movie of 72 would be The Heartbreak Kid. This is a movie, Robby, like I've had 5 or 6 guests throughout the year say, are you doing The Heartbreak Kid? Is that 72? I'm like, yeah, that'll be in November, December. And they all love it. They're all like, oh, that's a good one. And this movie was a huge hit, biggest hit for Elaine May, the director, who famously or infamously made one of the biggest box office bombs of all time, Ishtar from 1987, starring Warren Beatty and Dustin Hoffman. But in the early 70s, she made a couple hits. The first one, A New Leaf from 71. We talked about that last year. I guess that's another romantic comedy. I guess there are a few.
Okay.
We talk
I've
about
got some learning to do about the rom-coms of the 70s, I think.
Yeah, there are a few. They're seldom. They're not coming out every other week here. Like there's a lot more like kind of indie dramas around this time than there are studio rom-coms. But we finally got to one today, and it's a good one. I really enjoyed this. I'm excited to talk about it. Before we get to the movie, I'd love for you to talk about kind of what role has movies played in your life, and if you have some favorites you could share with us, that would be great.
Yeah, definitely. I think I always have been like obsessed with movies and very much, you know, movies and books and kind of like escaping into different worlds and stories and finding ways to empathize with other humans through stories. So always a big part. You know, my book is about a kid who wants to be a screenwriter, not a coincidence. So I think, you know, for me, movies are always about like the humans, you know. It's always about like the people, the characters. I can always get behind a movie that has a terrible plot if I love the characters. So I mean, that's just how it goes, you know. And if it's an actor or actress who I love, and I feel like, you know, I can kind of fall in love with the movie regardless. Like I'm one of those people that like Rotten Tomatoes and like critics will hate the movie, and I'm like, oh, I loved it. It had so much heart, you know. So that's always me. In terms of favorites, I think my like top 3 favorites that always come to mind when anyone asks would be The Holiday. Actually, can I say 4?
You can say 4.
Because that movie will always just be like my go-to cheer up movie. Clueless and The Devil Wears Prada. So they're all very like, I don't know if you'd call them like chick lit, like they're like chick lit books.
Yeah, they're not.
They're all very like in that same kind of vein, I think.
Like I was looking at a list of the best romantic comedies ever made, and Clueless was on it. And I was like, yeah, it's kind of a romantic comedy, but I think of that more as a comedy, just like a really funny movie that has some romance in it. Clueless is one of the greats. Like that's one of those that if it's on TV, I'll watch the rest of it. I love the cast. I love Amy Heckerling, just hit that one out of the park. That's such a great movie. Alicia Silverstone in that movie. It's like just like the perfect person at the right time for that screenplay. She's so good in that. And then so 2006 was a good year for you. You get The Holiday, and The Devil
And
Wears
Devil Wears
Prada.
Prada. I
So that was a
know.
big year for you at the
Yeah,
movie.
it was. Very informative year at the movies.
Is there a more entertaining movie than The Devil Wears Prada? Like
There's not. And I
that is
also
the most
worked in
entertaining movie.
fashion. So like
Oh,
that
okay.
was also like part of, I think, not why I loved it, but why I think it kind of, I even like reinvigorated my love for it as an adult.
Mhm.
Like, you know what I mean? I was seeing that and being like, kind of like that.
I really liked Meryl Streep before that movie. I'd seen a lot of her work. I would say The Devil Wears Prada is the film that made me really fall in love with Meryl Streep. Like that was the one I went,
Mhm.
this
I
woman.
agree. I agree.
Like had she played like a boss before? Like she hadn't really played that kind of a role in like a big studio comedy like that. And she
Yeah.
doesn't like phone it in any way. Like she is completely committed to that role.
It's
And
so,
that
yeah.
scene,
Oh,
yeah, that
she's so
scene
good.
when she has the makeup off, and
I know.
it's such a great
Another
performance.
divorce.
Yeah. That's I love that performance of hers got an Oscar nomination. You know, it's one that they could have like pushed that one aside and said, well, that's
Mhm.
more of like a comedy. We're not gonna,
Yeah.
but she's so good in that. Yeah, those are all fantastic movies, and I think fitting for, you know, especially Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is also wonderful. For our
The
movie
best.
today, you don't have like a really dark thriller favorite.
Oh,
So you're like, and
I
my
mean,
other
I do
favorite,
love like
Seven.
I love scary movies, but like, you know, I don't know if any of are like my faves as much as the rom-com. I tend to like look for stuff to kind of like cheer me up or put me in a better mood
Right.
most of the
Hmm.
time. So
Yeah.
it just depends.
Like if you don't know what to put on a Friday night or something, like you'll put on a comedy, not like a scary
Yeah,
movie.
yeah,
Okay. That makes sense.
most of the time. I feel like it's safer for the mood, but like sometimes I think I remember you tweeting about it, like Tick Tick Boom, I thought was gonna be like this like fun movie to watch, and I was like bawling my eyes out. So like sometimes it's still not safe, but I try to play it safe if I
Oh,
don't
did
know.
did I mislead you into thinking it was like a
No, no, I
comedy?
just remember I think you liked it too, right? I think you were like tweeting
That was
about Andrew
my.
Garfield.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, because I mean it was so good.
I tweet about Andrew Garfield often.
No, I
I'm
mean I
not
think
mad about
he
it.
I think he deserved to win. But no, I
Yeah.
think it was that movie. But yeah, just an example of like thinking I'm gonna put something on Friday and then ended up crying. Like, yeah, I'll stick to
It's
like my funny movies.
Yeah, Tick Tick Boom has its lighter moments, but it's mostly, you know, pretty serious, and with a just astonishing performance by Andrew
Mhm.
Garfield. And yeah, usually like if it's been a couple weeks, I'll probably tweet out like, "Hey, remember the guy who should have won Best Actor last
Yeah, there you go.
time?" But
Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got
someone's
to do
got
it.
to do it. I'll always be there for Andrew Garfield. So today we're talking The Heartbreak Kid. This came out at the end of 1972. This was a December release. So 50 years ago,
Wow.
we got this really, really fun and creative and unique romantic comedy. It's in some ways like nothing else I've seen before. Like it's got some of the conventions of a romantic comedy, but it also, and I wrote this down, I don't know if you like, in the hands of someone else, this movie is like almost on the verge of becoming like a psychological thriller.
Yes. Oh my gosh. No, that's such a great way to put it. I was wondering kind of like what is the disconnect? Because I in a good way, but
Yeah.
I could see that like 100%. It could have been like a weird Gone Girl or something if someone else had done it, where you're like, what is happening? And who is gonna like, yeah.
Yeah, it's like on James Corden show when he asked Anne Hathaway, "What are your two favorite romantic comedies?" And she said Notting Hill and Gone Girl.
Right.
And everyone in the audience cheered for Notting Hill. And then she said Gone Girl, and then it was just dead silent. Have you seen that clip?
Yeah. No, yes. Oh my gosh, I love Anne Hathaway. So trust me, reference the Anne Hathaway clip, I've probably seen.
Yeah. So I feel like in the hands of a different director, like Heartbreak Kid could have turned into like a Gone Girl kind of a movie. But I think the time and place and the cast that was gathered for this, and especially the screenplay being written by Neil Simon. Like, you know a whole lot about his history with
I
movies and
don't.
as a playwright. Like he wrote The Odd Couple, and he
Oh, okay.
writes just one successful comedy after another in the 70s. He writes a screenplay for a movie called California Suite from 78 that's got an amazing cast like Maggie Smith, Michael Caine, Jane
Oh,
Fonda. And he's known for comedies. And what's unique about the Heartbreak Kid is most of the time Neil Simon either writes an original screenplay or he adapts one of his plays. I want to say
Okay.
he's almost even more famous for his plays than he is for his screenplays. But in this one, he adapted someone else's short story called A Change of Plan by Bruce J. Friedman. And then what's I found really strange is that the movie opens with Neil Simon's The Heartbreak Kid, even though he didn't direct the movie.
Wow.
You don't see that very often.
No.
When you see the name before the title, it's usually like a John Carpenter, like a director.
Mm-hmm.
John Carpenter's Halloween.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
thought that was interesting. But Neil Simon's a very famous figure. I knew Elaine May had directed this. When I put it on last night, I had no idea that Neil Simon wrote the script. You can hear his words, his dialogue in this movie, because the dialogue in this is really fun.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But did you know anything about Elaine May, the director of the movie?
No,
she's
not
all
really.
she's also you know, I would say she's not most famous for being a film director because she only directed 4 films, but she also wrote a lot of screenplays. And she used to be she worked on stage. She was a like part of a 2-person show, an improv show with the great Mike Nichols, who directed The Graduate and
Mm-hmm.
Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf and The Birdcage, one of my favorite movies, The Birdcage. And she is still with us. I think she's in her early 90s, and she's had a phenomenal career, Oscar nominations, and she won a Tony a few years ago.
Oh wow.
She was, I think, in her mid to late 80s, and she won like a lead actress Tony for a show on Broadway recently. And so she's had an amazing career too. And I believe this is the only time that Neil Simon and Elaine May collaborated, like actually worked together on a project. So that also makes this movie special too, I think.
Yeah. No, definitely.
But before I get into some more of these bits of trivia, like what are some things you really liked about this movie? Like what kind of struck you when you watched it? This was your first time, right?
Yeah, so
I had never seen it either. So we're both newbies to this movie.
It was I think it, like, you know, kind of like we talked about before, it was something where you didn't quite know what to expect, which I liked.
Yeah.
And I liked that the things that you kind of thought were going to be obvious kind of weren't.
Mm-hmm.
And then I liked that things that you thought were going to be more complex were obvious, if that makes sense. Like I just love the way that it was done. And I love the way there was kind of like the screwball, maybe that's not the right term, but like some of the humor I felt like was very like, you know, him trying to talk her out of going to the dinner and like just like little things like that where it's very like the pacing was really great. It was just, I just felt like it was just really well done. It was easy to keep up with. The characters were just interesting and engaging, even the ones you didn't love. And so I don't know, I just loved how it was, you know, the execution I feel like was really good. And the cinematography, like I mentioned before, I haven't really seen that many 70s films in general that I can think of. So I think it was interesting to see kind of the camera work and the editing and things like that too.
Oh yeah. The cinematography is usually not something you pay much attention to in like a comedy, but I thought the look of this was really great. When we first get our reveal of kind of the second female lead, Sybil Shepherd, the blonde, and the way that Elaine May shoots her introduction into the movie where the sun is directly behind her head. And so you only see her like in pieces and then she disappears in shadow. Like I thought that was really strong. And Elaine May's a really good director of like composition and like especially in A New Leaf, the film she made the year before. I feel like in this movie she mostly stays out of the way. Like she just lets the story play out. There wasn't a whole lot in the movie where I'm like, oh, look at that amazing shot. It's kind of like, I mean, there's a scene, I mean, maybe more than one scene. There's a scene where Charles Grodin, his character is Lenny. He's talking to the father of Sybil Shepherd's character at a dinner, trying to like tell him why I should be the one to marry your daughter. And she lets that scene play out in a 2-shot. She never moves the camera.
Yeah.
There's no cutting. And it's like 5 minutes of them just talking. And I'm like, where would you see that in a movie now?
You wouldn't. And I don't know if you remember the one scene that stuck out to me too was when he was at the door and he was like, if you come back, I'll kick your ass or something like that. And like I kind of expected you to get like a cut of like his reaction or something. I feel like that was just very like an obvious thing that would happen and you didn't. And it was really impactful for some reason that you didn't. Like it was the door just closed and then you moved on. And it was interesting to me because I feel like that was a choice that not a lot of directors would have made.
I feel like today most directors shoot a lot of coverage and they'll, do a close-up and a wide shot and establishing and blah, blah, blah. And that gives them options in the editing room. But I feel like in the early 70s, directors will just kind of like shoot what they need for the scene and then move on. I mean, it depends on how much practice you've had and, if you really know exactly what you need from scene to scene. But this is a movie like that scene at the dinner, like that. It felt to me like she didn't just shoot that and then, okay, now let's get coverage of, 5 other angles. Like it felt to me like Elaine May was probably like, okay, yeah, we got it.
Well, yeah,
let's move on, But this is like a really interesting event. We should say for our listeners who might not have seen the movie, like, although I always say the best way to listen to my podcast is to watch the movie first because we do.
Oh, are we gonna talk?
We do spoil.
Spoilers? Okay.
Yeah, we do spoilers. I usually say. I usually say something. No, I think we're good. Okay. But we should say a little bit about the story. It's it's not that hard to sum up what this movie's about. It kind of opens with the ending of a romantic comedy. It ends with the wedding. We get the meet cute at the bar. Charles Grodin is our lead actor. He plays Lenny, and he meets this girl at the bar named Lila, played by Jeannie Berlin, who is, Robby, the daughter of the director, Elaine May.
Oh.
And looks just like her mom.
I didn't know that. I did recognize her from Succession, though. I did. So I was like, I know her from somewhere. And I looked it up and she was on Succession. So I felt kind of proud of myself.
Her IMDb is really fascinating because she's in this and she's in like 3 other projects around this time. And then there's nothing until the 90s. And then she's in like a couple things. And then there's nothing again. And then the last like 7 years, she's all of a sudden in some big stuff.
Yeah.
She's in The Fabelmans by Spielberg. Like I haven't seen it yet, but I guess she's in that movie.
Yeah.
So she took a break. She pulled a Terrence Malick and then came back. I always kind of like that when someone, maybe gets an Oscar nominations and a few movies and then just, we don't hear of her or him for a while. And then 20 years later, they show up and then they're in stuff again. You're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. Doesn't happen all the time. But, so they say in the movie, he was in the service, right? He was like overseas. He was serving. And then he comes back and he just kind of like, meets like the first girl he meets, he gets engaged right away. And something I love that the movie does is we don't spend 20 minutes getting their dating and blah, blah, blah. It's like they meet at the bar. And I think there's one scene in a bedroom or something. And then it's their wedding day.
Which I think was intentional because I think we're almost like, what is the foundation of this, right? Like I think that's on purpose, like it's very much like, do you guys even know each other? And then you realize no, you don't.
Yeah, aren't they asking him that like at the the ceremony, like so what do you know about her? And it's like, oh, she's a great gal.
Yeah.
We're gonna spend some time getting to know each other on our honeymoon,
right?
But so it opens with like, and she's really beautiful and they seem to love each other and they get married and they're happy. And what I loved too was that it's not like we then cut to them driving. They're going to Florida. It's not like we cut to them driving and she's just annoying the hell out of him. And he's sitting there like his eyes big, like, oh my God, what did I get myself in? Like, he's like, they're joking in the car. They're singing together. They stop for food. And it's like the way Elaine May and Neil Simon, they just like kind of slowly creep in the annoying elements of Lila. It's not in the first
time she says 40 to 50 years, you're like, this is not going to be good. You just know the first time she says it, you're like, there it is.
I don't think that would go over for like the couple in the world who love each other the most. Like you don't refer to the next 50 years together. That's not a good thing to project onto your partner on day 1 of marriage. It's going to be an amazing 50 years. It's like, no, like, let's focus on today. And so, I mean, she starts to annoy him a little bit in the car. I want to say the first scene that pops out in my mind is when they stop for lunch and she gets the egg salad sandwich.
Yeah, that was gross.
and she takes this huge bite and it's just all over her face. and he says, you got some of it. And then she wipes, and it's like half of it goes, but then the other half stays.
Mhm.
And then
It's
she's
hard
like,
to
did I
watch.
get it? And he's like, okay. And then we see her chewing, and it's just her mouth is full of the egg salad. And I'm okay with eggs, but like there's something about an egg salad that kind of
Yeah.
grosses me out. So when she's like just taking that massive bite.
Yeah, I'm like, and she's like, "Oh, the egg salad's so good," and her mouth is just like full of it. I'm just like, ugh, I'm ready for the next scene because it's just so gross.
And then she like she puts it in his face. She's like, "Oh, you got to try this."
Yeah, it's just, oof.
And he's like, "No." So we're getting these like moments where it's not like, oh, he's clearly gonna want to leave her kind of a thing, but like, and he's like, okay, that's kind of annoying. Oh, this is kind of annoying. And then they get to Florida, and they're at their vacation space, and they're outside on the beach lounging, and they're, she's getting her tan. And then is it day one? It's like right after they arrive, he meets Sybil Shepherd's character, Kelly, just absolute gorgeous bombshell, young
So
Sybil
pretty.
Shepherd, who this was her second movie. Her first movie before this was The Last Picture Show from 1971, the black and white drama by Peter Bogdanovich, which is one of the greatest movies of the 1970s. Robbie, if you want to treat yourself,
Add it to my list.
treat yourself sometime. The Last Picture Show is wonderful. It was her debut. I think she was a model or something. She was discovered, I think, out of a magazine or something. The director I think he saw her in a magazine and was like, "Who is this? Can we bring her in and have her read?" And then they fell in love, those two.
Oh, really?
Yep. And we're together for many years after Last Picture Show. But so this was her follow-up movie. It's kind of interesting. After Heartbreak Kid, like her career is on fire. She had her first two movies are big hits, acclaimed, Oscar nominated. And then she makes like 2 or 3 more movies with her boyfriend, Peter Bogdanovich, and they're all huge flops from like 1974 to 1976. And then she's kind of out of favor for a while. And she's in stuff here and there, but she doesn't really come back as a big star, I would say, until the 1990s when she was on a sitcom called Sybil, which was a big show with Christine Baranski in like the mid to late 1990s. That's kind of what she might be most known for today to some people. But she had 2 big hits right off the top. And I think she's great in this because she's so different from Lila in every way. You know,
totally.
One's not necessarily better or worse than the other. They're just 2 completely different women with different personalities and looks. And so you can kind of see why Lenny is kind of like, being pulled in different directions here. Yeah. Because
like with how different they are, like the fact that Lila was like, "Oh, I just need like 2 minutes," and she like wasn't ready to go to the beach, and then she's just the gorgeous blonde bombshell who's just like jumping into the ocean. It's like completely just in every way so different. Like it's night and day how one is so spontaneous and carefree, and the other one is so not for him.
A funny piece of trivia I found was that in his autobiography, Charles Grodin, the main guy in the movie, he recounted that Neil Simon, the screenwriter, reportedly asked for Jeannie Berlin, who plays Lila, to be replaced because he didn't find her pretty enough for the role.
Oh my goodness.
Not knowing that she was the daughter of the director.
Wow.
Until later. She
was so pretty. So that's like...
And I thought she's beautiful. She's beautiful. Yeah. She's not the same kind of beauty as Sybil Shepherd is, but Jeannie Berlin is gorgeous in this movie, and like a total catch, and really funny.
And with her cream, the sunburn and the cream. I don't know, but
yeah, that's a good part. That's when she's in the hotel room, right? And she's just like she's got the cream like on her chest, and it's like all over her face,
like little it's like blots.
Like how long is she in that room? I feel like there's a 40-minute section of the movie where he's just keeps leaving to go see Kelly, and Lila's just in the hotel room.
I just kept waiting for her to go down and like just be like, that's what I just kept thinking was gonna happen,
Oh, like she would like catch them together.
Yeah, that's what I kept thinking because I don't know. I feel like I'm very conditioned because I feel like in one of today's movies would be what would happen.
Yeah, and we'll talk about the remake from '07, but I mean, I haven't seen it in forever, but I feel like there's probably more of those moments in
Sure.
the
Yeah.
remake of like her discovering them and her being more a part of the second half, which Gina Berlin really isn't a
Mm-mm.
part of the second half of the narrative that much. But so they get there and he's like, he just falls head over heels for Kelly, like right away.
Yeah.
She just, I mean,
It's a
she just,
pattern, I guess.
and this is like day 1 or 2 of his honeymoon. And then his wife, Lila, gets severely burnt from being in the sun all day. So she needs 2 days, maybe more, to like recover in the hotel room, to like just like put moisture all over her. And she just can't really go out for a while. She's in pain. She's hurting from being sunburned. And so he uses this opportunity to spend more time with Kelly, who, which I thought was really strange, he doesn't keep it a secret with Kelly that he's married. He like shouts it at her from the water. Remember that scene?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I feel like most screenwriters would have made it where Lenny doesn't disclose with Kelly that
Because there's
he's
like
married.
tension if he doesn't, yeah, I know. I thought that was interesting too. I was wondering what her response was going to be when he did shout it from the water. And it was something like, what did you say? Like, so what, or what's new, or something.
She's like, yeah,
that.
what's new? Or
Yeah, like something. It was very, I was like, okay, red flags going off, but that's fine.
And then with his wife still in the hotel room, wondering where he is, he keeps making up these stories. Like, there was a car crash.
Yeah,
My friend's in the hospital. I have to go back. I have to go see him.
There's
So
like
sorry, honey.
Thing.
There was yeah. I was in court all day, and we have to go back.
Just so much.
He says, "Oh, it was a waste of a day, honey. You wouldn't believe it." And he's just lying through his teeth. And she's like, I feel like she picks up on it at some point. Like, I don't know if I trust that he's telling me the truth, but not to the point where she's like really pressing him on it.
Mm-hmm.
But she's a smart character. I don't think she's written as like totally stupid, like that she's kind of picking up that something's going on with him. But it's not until he finally reveals to her what's happening.
Which I do think was my favorite.
Was that your?
I think it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So before that, so he has fallen in love with Kelly to the point where he wants to ask her parents for permission to marry her. Right?
It's just absurd. Just absurd. But yes.
And so he sits down. Oh my God, this actor, Eddie Alberts, who plays her dad, is amazing.
So good.
He sits there. Charles Grodin sits there for 2+ minutes and just talks his way through why he's the right man for Kelly, why Lenny's the right man for Kelly. And then he says, now there is a little something here. I am on my honeymoon right now, but I'm gonna take care of it. I made a mistake. The one I want to be with is your daughter, Kelly. And the dad just sits there at the table and nods and kind of just looks at him. And you're like, well, this is like a quirky romantic comedy. Maybe he'll go. What? No. What does he do, Robby?
Absolutely not. I think, I feel like I actually was expecting him to be like, to make a joke, or for it to be like, didn't you kind of think it was going to be one of those situations where it's going to be a funny moment?
Yeah, he's so quiet for so long. And his wife is just like smiling, like the mom of Sybil Shepherd's character. Yeah. She's just like, oh, this is so great.
Well, it's not exactly that.
And the dad's, basically, I can't remember what he says, but it's something along the lines of, if I see you in front of my daughter again, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
which it makes sense. That's a more reasonable, but I just think I was expecting a joke. And then I was kind of like, oh, well.
No, like
all right.
Even in moments of comedy, the characters are written very real. Like his reaction, I think, is the real reaction. Most fathers, I think is that she their only child? Like, it's like, it seems like she's,
I think so.
Like, or at least their only girl. I don't know if we meet, like, I don't think we meet like her brother, or if she has a sibling, but it's like she's his baby. Like, she's like everything to him. Mm-hmm. And so he's looking at this guy, telling him the story about how he loves his daughter, who he just met,
and 2 to 3 days ago. Remember, he didn't like him. Remember that? Right, he was like, what does he think of me? And she was like, he doesn't like you, or something. And he was like, well, like, based on your looks or something. He's like, looks aren't everything. So it's kind of like, it's already like not great, I feel like.
Yeah. But I feel like it's something for him to actually be open and say to this father figure, like, I am married, I am on my honeymoon. Like, that took a lot of guts to say that. I feel like
Yeah.
most men in that situation would not have even said that. Like, to Kelly, to the dad, "No, we're just going to keep that. I will, on the sideline, I will go figure this out, but I'm not going to tell her or her dad." But he's just being upfront about it. He's like, yeah, this happened. I made a mistake. But the dad's not going for
No.
it. And that's one of the great scenes of the movie, of them just letting that play out in a long take and getting a sense of who these characters are. And that's what makes for great drama and comedy in a movie, is like when you have those opposites like pushing against each other. And that's definitely Lenny and Kelly's father in this, which is great. And then I want to say it's pretty soon after that we get to the scene that you love, where Lenny is finally ready to reveal to Lila that he has fallen in love with someone else, and it's time for a divorce.
Yeah,
because it's stretched out. He can't quite tell her right off the bat. It takes 5 minutes?
It was rough. Yeah, it was it was and I feel like it also had like, it was so weird because while I was like cringing and so uncomfortable, it's also kind of has like that screwball comedic moment where she's like, "Oh, you're sick. I get it." Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it just doesn't, he just can't land it. And it's just like so drawn out and uncomfortable. But I feel like it's so well done. And it's so perfectly paints their characters. And it so perfectly paints the human experience in so many ways, the way that he's like, "Oh, well, we just bonded now." Like, it's like that flip of like, you know what I mean? It's so irrational and absurd, and he is so irrational and absurd. So it's just, I felt like it was just so well done and such a good like culmination of their
It's such a rich scene because we've been waiting for it for like half an hour. Like, he keeps coming in and out of the room. At one point, she says, "Well, let me come with you. I'm feeling better. Let me come with you." And he's like, "No, no, 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 no. You're not gonna. No, no, no. Just stay here. I'll be back." And he says, "I think I have something I need to talk to you about tonight. Like, it's very important." And so, but he takes him a while to say it, and he just keeps, and there's so much tension there because you know what he's about to say, but Neil Simon and Elaine May, they just keep it running, and you're like, okay, he's not. And then he words it in a way where she thinks he's dying. So she starts crying and hugging him, and then he finally explodes. Like, "I'm not dying."
And she keeps being like, "I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna throw." I will say I was waiting. I was like, look, like with my eyes
waiting
for like the just disgusting, like, I don't know. I didn't know how they would have pulled it off, but I was like, oh God, please not one of those where it's like projectile vomiting.
And I like how he words it like, "You have the rest of your life ahead of you."
I know. It's just, this character is just so like off the wall to me.
Did we like Lenny? Did we like the main character?
I did not. Did you like Lenny?
No.
Okay.
He's a creep.
Yeah,
he's a creep.
He has like no rational bone in his body. I mean, it's like is so impulsive and inconsiderate, and just, it's just wild. It was just crazy to watch.
I mean,
like,
Charles Grodin's a really great actor. I mean, one of the first movies I remember seeing in the theater when I was a kid was Beethoven from 1992, the dog movie. He's the dad in that.
Oh, I didn't even realize that. He's the dad in Beethoven. Oh,
he's the dad in Beethoven, and he's so funny in Midnight Run with Robert De Niro, and he's in some great stuff. And so, but it was funny. It's like he's not as like lovable in this as he is when he's older in the 80s and 90s. Like, here, it's almost like him being young and more handsome and thinner and like looking good. Like, somehow it like turned me off of his character a little bit more than when he's just like the dad of like the later part of his career.
He's so sleazy. That's why.
He's so sleazy.
And he's very like, there was a little moment that I loved that I feel like really spoke to his character when Kelly said something like she liked his hair down, and then the next scene when he's getting ready, he's like combing his hair down in front of his wife, and I felt like that was it's just like such a small thing, but it's so telling of his character, because it's like he just goes with whatever's like the thing in front of him at the moment. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's just like, I just felt like that was so like small of a detail, but so brilliant, because I noticed and I was like, yep, all he's got on his mind is like, what can make Kelly happy right now, which is just so.
Yeah, I mean, even if you were to suddenly meet the love of your life on your honeymoon, like the way he handles it is just so awful.
Yeah.
This movie and him, they're like so awful to Lila that if she wasn't the daughter of Elaine May, I'd be like, Jesus, this poor girl. And going back to that scene we were talking about, something I really was struck by was that, that scene does not end with like a cute comedy button. She's crying at the end of that scene. She's hurt. And that's the last time we see that character. So it's not just like this zany comedy, like, haha,
No, yeah.
Which made me, I was like, oh, is this going to be like, are we going to turn this into more of a drama? And is he going to change his mind and go back to Lila? And that'll be kind of the third act.
That might have been the third act.
I thought that's where it was going to go. And it doesn't at all. Lila is not in the rest of the movie.
It did not go the way that I thought it was going to go. I'll just say that.
Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. So Kelly lives with her family in Minnesota. I got the sense she's like a college student out there. And
like a poli-sci or something like that, she said.
Yeah, got to get to English lit. Got to get to English lit. And he tells the dad, he's like, I'm going to uproot my life. I'm going to go out to Minnesota. I'll find a home and I want to be with your daughter. And he actually does it. Like he shows up in the freezing cold Minnesota, and he goes, doesn't he go to the dad's house first? We talked about that scene already. And he's like, doesn't he say, if I see you on my porch again, I'll kill you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, and just close the door on him. Well, because you kind of get, I love they always do that with the dad, where like he's like says his last name, which I can't remember what it was, like after he walked away, and you almost think he's gonna maybe like say something else, but he does it again. It's kind of, you know what I mean, like they do that consistently with his character, where it's like, what's he gonna do? Oh nope, he's gonna kill him.
So that doesn't go well for Lenny. And then he goes to the campus and she doesn't even pay him that much attention. She's like, oh, hi. Oh, I'm really flattered that you came all the way out here to say hi to me. I got to get to my class. And she walks off. I thought the last 20 minutes was going to be like him realizing that whatever he had with Kelly was just in Florida. Like she's got her own life. She's probably got a boyfriend here on campus. She wants nothing to do with him really now. I mean, what's she supposed to be, like between like 20 and 22 or something?
Yeah, I did find myself wondering that though when they were on the campus. I was like,
he's at least like late 20s, right? Maybe early 30s. Like she's a lot younger than he is. And, I wouldn't say, you're not going to rely on like a 20-year-old to just drop everything and her whole, college career. And, oh, yes, I'll just be with you. And I really liked that. I said, oh, this is perfect. He's going to throw away this marriage. He's going to go out there, get an apartment or something. And she's not going to want anything to do with him. I was like, that makes sense. That's realistic.
And she was so laissez-faire in Florida. So of course she's laissez-faire now, and she doesn't care. That's what you think.
And this is where I wrote down that it could be a horror film or a thriller, because he doesn't leave. Like he comes back and he's like just stalking her. Like he's just like walking up to her on campus after her class that she went to. He's like, come on, come over here. I really need to talk to you. And that's where I'm like getting like really creepy stalker vibe.
Don't love that. Yeah.
And then, but then it works out. Like he takes her into his car and they kiss, and then they get naked at home. And I'm like, oh, okay. So she is into him. I mean, she says that she's attracted to him, but I'm like, oh, okay. The movie is going here. And as we get towards the end, like he is going to do everything he can to marry this girl. Like that is his goal in life. Right?
Yeah. And he believes, like when he says like your dad and I will be on the same page or something along those lines, he believes all of it, which is just like scary.
And then he
has
no
reason to believe that is going to happen.
Yeah. What do you think of that scene where they get naked and they stand close together but don't touch? Like, what do you think of that moment? Was that strange or
not my
favorite? I was like in a different movie by a different director.
Sure.
Like this could be a really hot, sexy, really memorable moment. And between those two actors in that environment and this story, it felt very weird.
Specifically, it was just like not. Yeah. And then also I think in 2022, I don't know if it's maybe different to watch like a older guy with a college girl than it would
Right.
have been back then too. You know, I mean, those kinds of things. That it was just very like, because you're very cognizant of that now. You're like, this is just kind of weird. Like all of it's weird.
Yeah.
Like you said, he's got creepy vibes. I was just not a fan of him. So the whole time I was just waiting for like, I don't know. I was just waiting for something to happen where he kind of figured it out. But
Right. Like I feel like that scene would have been better. Like if today it'd be better with like an Andrew Garfield and Jake Gyllenhaal. Like that scene would have been very great.
right.
But these two, I'm like, I don't know. And then we get that. I love that last scene with the dad is great. Like this movie like did not need the dad to be as omnipresent in the narrative as he is, but I'm so happy that he is. Like for me, he puts the movie up a notch, the dad character. Like his 2 or 3 big scenes in the movie are really great and what I'll remember a lot from this. And so Lenny's like talking about he's talking about food and weather, and he's just like just droning on. And the dad seems more open to what he's saying. He's just kind of nodding and eating, and he doesn't seem as cold as he was in that previous dinner scene. And then he takes him back to his study or his office or something, and he says, "Oh, I listened to every word you said," and basically just shoots him down in every way. Like says, "You are full of you know what."
Yeah.
And I am going to pay you to stay away from my daughter. How much money do I have to give you? And he just keeps upping it. 15, 20, 25,000. $25,000 is a lot of money to, you know, a younger guy in 1972. That's a lot of money. He's the character's obviously rich. And Lenny just refuses. He's like, "No, there's nothing you could pay me. I'm going to marry your daughter." And that's a great final kind of big almost like a climactic battle scene between the protagonist and the antagonist kind of a scene. And I thought that moment worked well too.
Which would have been so like, it would have been a great scene if you were rooting for him, but you're like, take the money.
That's what makes the movie strange, and that I'm never rooting for Lenny ever. Like to, I mean, I guess I want him to be happy. I mean, I understand that happens. People get married and then very soon thereafter, maybe not on their honeymoon, but it happens.
I mean,
people get married and they're made a mistake.
You're maybe because, when she's like singing, and then the weird thing where he was like, "Don't touch my chest," and she like kept doing different ways. You're like, maybe like this is just not. But then he like immediately just is so. No, like I just didn't.
He's so awful to Lila that it's hard to get past that and want to. And I don't know if like, do Elaine May and Neil Simon want us to root for Lenny? I don't get the sense that they do.
I can't imagine that they do. No, I can't imagine.
I mean, this movie being directed by a woman, I find very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
It's directed by a woman. It's the main character is a man, but he's not like the most likable guy. And he's really awful to one of the female characters. And I thought that was very interesting.
It's kind of awful to both of the female characters, really. I mean, in different ways, so I don't know.
But so then he does marry her at the end. And I think one thing the movie does well is it does not give us a happy ending, right? He marries her, but Elaine May and Neil Simon choose to end the film on him roaming around after the wedding and talking to people, having little to say. And it ends with him sitting on a couch next to this like 10-year-old boy who gets very bored with Lenny, gets up and leaves. And then he's just sitting there by himself on the couch, not looking very thrilled. And then we dissolve to the credits. Like, what did you make of the last scene?
Kid, I guess, that's why. I mean, that's really what I thought, honestly, with the last scene. I was like, I mean, he is the Heartbreak Kid. I mean, it's just not a great pattern. I don't know, because I think it's almost like, is he going to do it again? Like, is that what we're supposed to take away from it?
Oh, like take away that this, like, because it kind of ends, the movie ends with the beginning. Like it's almost shot in a similar way. I feel like the beginning after the wedding, we get like him just kind of roaming and talking to like her relatives and stuff. And then at the end, it's like the same scene, but with a new wife.
Again. Oh God!
You're gonna do it again at the that could have been a.
We need the sequel. I mean, I don't want the sequel actually. No, but
that could
do it again.
Like I almost wonder if like if they had shortened some of the scenes and like him marrying Kelly was like hour 10, And then it happens again. Like he goes on a honeymoon and he gets annoyed with her, and then he and then he sees another girl. And there's like the third act of the movie is him pursuing the third one.
It's not, they're not gonna stay together. So it's like, I mean, as the viewer, you're like, this is clearly not what he thinks it is. So I don't know. Oof.
I was kind of surprised that Kelly was so into Lenny.
I was too, and I was confusing because I thought that like I thought kind of what you did, where it was like he was gonna realize like, oh, she doesn't really care about me. And so the fact that she kind of gave in was really weird. I thought it was kind of weird, the one part about like, I guess, was it her boyfriend or the guy she was dating, where she was like, he's the captain of everything, like you're gonna have to, and he kind of easily was like, well, I was like in the army or whatever, and she's like, okay. She was just, I think she was just so, they both were so impressionable, and it was like, who is calling the shots right now? Like it was just very like, it was very weird, very strange relationship. Perfect for him.
Yeah, I really liked a lot of this. I think one of the flaws with the movie that I wasn't a big fan of, I thought the character of Kelly could have been better written. Like, why does she like this guy? Why is she like putting up with his idea of getting married in Florida, and then just like pushing him aside when he shows up in Minnesota? Oh, no, now let's get naked at home and let's get married. It just felt like she felt kind of like a pawn in the screenplay. Like, okay, we need her to think this here, and then let's not have her just jump into his arms when he gets to Minnesota. Okay, but no, but like it felt a little bit contrived, like her
plot device a little bit. Yeah.
What does she want? Why does she want him? It's never that clear, besides her saying, "I think you're attractive."
Well, and I think it could have worked if what you were saying, like if it was that like she doesn't know what she wants, and so she can't want him, that would have worked, right? Like if that had been consistent, but it just wasn't, so it was very strange.
Yeah, I mean, I know he is our point of view character, and that's fine, but I felt like Kelly could have had a little more agency. Like maybe the movie could have given us a scene or two with just her, or talking to a friend or something. I felt like she could have been, her role could have been a little bit richer. It was kind of one note.
We did get scenes of just Lila, so I feel like it could have worked, like it could have happened. But
I mean, I feel like there might be a scene with her parents where it's just the three of them. There might be a brief moment there, but there's not much. And so I thought her character was lacking a little bit. I mean, we understand why he falls in love with her. I mean, 1972 Sybil Shepherd is drop dead gorgeous. Like she is stunning, so that makes sense, but you have to give me a little more than that. And because I just felt like the right way to tell the story was to have him show up in Minnesota, and she's like, what the hell are you doing here?
Well, because she's not like any rom-com lens or any lens really, like she's not really the ideal love interest, because when a guy's like, I'm married, and you're like, so what? I mean, you kind of immediately set up like you're not like the best person for to be jumping into romance with. Like you don't value relationship or marriage, so it's kind of like a weird, it was just the whole time I was expecting her to be like, dude, like go back to like, no, this is not happening. So which
that would have felt natural, that would have felt real.
Totally.
So I was like, that's an interesting choice. And I mean, like what 21-year-old in college with a boyfriend is going to want to get married to some older guy who just shows up, and like that just felt weird.
Yeah, it was very strange. Very strange.
But
we also didn't see, I know that it's kind of picky and it would have added too much screen time, but we didn't see a ton of their actual like bonding either. So that also adds to why it's hard to, like, we know it happened, but we didn't really like witness that. And I think in a rom-com, usually you kind of see more of the romance budding. So it makes sense. Again, probably intentional for us to be like, what is happening? But
yeah. Is there ever a moment where she's bothered by the fact that he was just on his honeymoon when he fell for her? Like, is there one moment where she's like, maybe this isn't the right guy?
No, because even when
she's okay with it,
when he's like, did you tell your dad? And she's like, no, like it's like she doesn't care at all, like she just is like, whatever. It's very strange.
She's so just like nonchalant about it. It feels like he could have said, oh, I'm just gonna stay married to that woman and I'll be with you too, and she would have been like, okay,
cool. Yeah. Not good.
Sounds
not good, Kelly.
So I thought that was strange. The other thing, I don't know how it would have worked. I really missed the character of Lila in the third act. That felt really weird to me, that he basically breaks the news to her at that dinner and she cries, and then The movie, I want to say, I think that was like an hour 10. And the movie had
it was
35 more minutes of him pursuing Kelly in Minnesota. And we never see Lila again.
And are we supposed to feel like he like did the right thing because he gave her everything except for however much he said, like $8,000 or 10,000, something like that? Remember?
Oh,
Like
right. He gave her some
everything.
money.
He gave her like
Does he give
all
her
of
the
the
car?
present. Yeah, he gave her everything except for, he said, a certain amount of money, like a couple
Okay.
thousand or something. And it was strange to me because I was waiting for like the other shoe to drop on that. Like I was like, but the conversation that they had, I think it was maybe his lawyer or his accountant or someone was like, oh, I could have gotten you more. And he's like, no, I wanted to do the right thing for her. And I was like, I still don't feel like this is going to make me like you if that's what this is trying to do. Like, it's not working.
I just was like, it would make more sense that Kelly, pushes him aside in Minnesota. And he says, you know what? I need to go back. I made a mistake again. I need to go back for Lila. And then Lila's in a new relationship or something.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, he doesn't have anything. Like that would have made more sense to me. Not to say that if you get married and you're not happy, you change your mind. It's not like you deserve to have nobody and be miserable, but just the way that he handles it in the film. It's not like it's been married. They've been married for 6 months. It's been like 3 days.
Yeah.
So
it was a very, very slimy.
Yeah.
Not good.
So yeah, I thought like the actress Berlin, I thought she was so great. And I kind of wanted one more scene of her, even if it was on the phone. Like he's having a bad moment and he calls her or something. Like I wanted to get a sense of, okay, where is she months later? Like, where is she now? Because we just have to imagine ourselves, like what happened to Lila. We don't really know.
And I guess maybe the point is like he doesn't even think about her anymore. I don't know, which is
yes. But her mom's the director, so you think her mom would have said like,
yeah,
we should bring you back for a scene here. But maybe it just didn't fit into the screenplay, the narrative. I don't know. But no, I mean, overall, I thought this was pretty great. I mean, I've seen a lot of mediocre movies for 72 for the podcast. Like you wouldn't believe some of the stuff I've watched, Robbie. You'd be like, oh my God. Thankfully, the longest movie I watched this year, The Emigrants, which was a 3.5-hour foreign film, was my greatest discovery of the whole year. It was amazing.
Okay, good.
But I've also watched
3.5 hours. You're committed, so I mean, that'll be good.
I was planning to watch it like a limited series. I was going to watch it in 3 parts, like an hour 10.
Yeah.
And I put it on, and I was so into it. I'm like, I'm going to watch the second hour too, and then I just watched the rest of it. It was so good.
That really says a lot. That's
so good. That happens. But I've also watched some mediocrity. This is definitely one of the better movies of the year, The Heartbreak Kid.
Good.
There are a couple flaws in it, and it's not a laugh riot. I don't want our listeners to think you're sitting there laughing. I mean, did you laugh out loud at anything?
I'm trying to think. Did I laugh out loud?
Like maybe the egg salad sandwich.
Even that part, I was kind of grossed out, but it was funny.
And her with the lotion on was funny.
The lotion was funny. Yeah, the lotion was funny. I'm trying to think if there were any.
And her just like trying to go with him out of the room. And he's like, no, stay.
Yes. So I think to me, all of the funny moments actually included Lila, now that I think about it. Like, I don't think I laughed once they weren't together.
Kelly is just this beautiful girl. There's nothing really like, she's like angelic and she's like the perfect girl. What does he say when she gets undressed? He's like something about God and I've seen your greatest creation. Remember that creepy thing he said?
Creepy, yeah. I think Lila's like body language and everything was funny too. Like even like one part I did laugh at, it was so small and like not even probably supposed to be funny, but like when he first saw Kelly and Lila came down and she was like yelling for him, like Lenny. And then like the way he was running down the beach and she was running across the balcony or like next to him. Her body language and her delivery was really funny to me. Like her timing was great. So I think she was the funniest part for sure.
Yeah. So, but no, this was a lot of fun. I had a good time and I like that I didn't know where it was going. Like usually, especially now, right? You watch a romantic comedy made now.
Oh,
and you just kind of like, go down the list. Sometimes you get thrown a few surprises, but aren't you like when you watch a movie now and okay, around the end of the second act, we're going to get that moment where they break up, like something happens and then they're pulled apart and then we get the sad music. And
Well,
then
especially us. I mean, you are like, you know all about films, and then if you study anything about like Save the Cat or storytelling arcs or anything,
Save
I
the
mean, it's
Cat.
so easy to like know the beats at this point that if it follows beats to a certain point, you know what's going to happen. So that
Yeah.
was kind of nice about this movie, is like I really didn't actually, you know what, I didn't catch myself like counting beats or looking for beats with this movie, which is interesting because I normally do, but I think it was just done, it was very engaging, and you just didn't, I didn't catch myself being like, oh, this is the Dark Night of the Soul or whatever. Like I didn't see myself doing that. It was interesting. I
Yeah,
usually always do
that's
that with movies.
part of the reason why I love films of the 70s is that a lot of these filmmakers and storytellers aren't interested in conventions. Like
Yeah.
they'll just throw it all out.
I need to
And
watch more 70s movies. It sounds
oh
like
yeah,
fun.
there's some. I could, don't watch them all. They're not all great.
Okay.
Like, as I've learned through this podcast, I've had some weeks I'm like, oh my god, they're
You're
not
like,
all
yeah.
great. But when
Was
they
Valley
work,
of the Dolls 70s or the late 60s? I
Valley
was
of the
just thinking.
Dolls is 67,
Okay. Okay.
which
I
is
was gonna
like the
say I've seen one.
first. That's the first like really good year for cinema that's kind of like pushing into the 70s, because that's the year of The Graduate and Bonnie and Clyde,
Okay.
which are considered the first two movies, along with maybe Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf from 66, that really kind of started pushing us into a new era of filmmaking that doesn't just rely on the big studio movies.
Right.
Like there can be indie storytellers, and we can have violence and language and do other things and be creative. And that's kind of, I want to say it's still not at the apex. I feel like the really great cinema of the 70s, we don't start to see until really 74, 75. That's when we start to get like really, really great stuff. And because I looked the other day at like, what are the films of 73 and 74? Like, what do I have to look forward to? 73's got some good stuff. 74 is dynamite. It's like, oh
is
my
that
god.
John Carpenter's Halloween 74? Is it a different year?
Halloween is 78.
78.
Carpenter's
okay.
first film is 74. It's called Dark Star.
Okay.
But 74, man, we get two amazing Mel Brooks movies, Young Frankenstein and Blazing Saddles, and
oh my gosh, okay,
Chinatown and Godfather 2, and so many great movies. Amarcord. So
next year will be great for you.
Yeah, no, like the next couple years is going to be really, really fun. And I'm hoping I don't have 72 out of the 50 films I will have looked at for this podcast this year, because we do one every Friday. Maybe 20 of the 50 I'll say I really liked or loved, and then the other ones I'm like, I could take it or leave it. This movie today I would definitely put closer to the top of the list, because you don't really know where it's going. Like when he went to Minnesota, I was like, oh, this movie probably has like 5 or 10 minutes left, and it had 35 minutes. I'm like, what the hell is the rest of the movie about?
Yeah, I know.
and so I love that feeling, having seen so many movies and read a lot of books and written a lot of stuff. Like when you don't know where it's going is really exciting.
I love it. Yeah,
so
love that.
So a few other pieces of trivia about the movie. Did you know this is an Oscar nominated film? An Oscar nominated romantic comedy, Robbie?
I did not know. Well, wait, I think you told me before we talked about it, because it was was it Elaine or no? Was it something else?
This movie got 2 Oscar nominations.
Okay.
It was nominated for Best Supporting Actress for Jeannie Berlin, who played Lila. She was nominated for this movie, which I think is really cool. Not only was she nominated at the Oscars, she also was nominated at the Golden Globes, and she won 2 major critics group prizes. The National Society of Film Critics and New York Film Critics gave Berlin Best Supporting Actress of the Year of any movie, of any genre.
I mean, I do think she was fantastic in it. So I'm not, I mean, even like you said, she wasn't even in the third act, but she kind of stole the show. So
yeah, I mean, she, like, if you're going to really reward a performance here, but I might love it even more. And I couldn't believe this when I looked it up after I watched the movie. Eddie Albert, who plays the father, was also nominated for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. Isn't that interesting? I mean, it's basically 2 extended scenes.
Yeah,
where he talks to Lenny. I mean, that first scene we talked about, it's just like the camera's locked off and they're just talking across the table.
Yeah.
And then the last scene, second to last scene of the movie, where they're talking, and we do cut back and forth between them, but they're pretty like basic scenes, and it's just the dad like just kind of going to bat for his daughter and wanting the best for her. And it's not a funny performance, it's a serious performance. And I mean, what is he in the movie? Maybe 10 minutes? 12.
We got to figure that out. What is his what's his actual runtime? Because I feel like, yeah, it was not a lot.
And he was nominated for an Oscar for that. That's kind of cool. Like, you don't see that very much now. Like, I mean, once in a blue moon, you'll get, you know, a 2-scene performance that gets in at the Oscars, but it doesn't happen very much anymore. Usually it's like now, like someone will get a Best Supporting Actress nomination and they're in like an hour of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, there are some supporting nominations that I'm like, oh, I thought that would have been like a lead role personally, because I don't know, but like I'm like, oh, I didn't know that character was considered supporting.
Like, I don't know. I feel like if you're in the whole movie, you should be in lead.
Right. Yeah.
As we'll talk about 2 years after the, speaking of 73, so that'll actually be next year. Same director as Last Picture Show with Sybil Shepherd, Paper Moon. Tatum O'Neal, I think she's 10 years old when she made the movie. She's the lead of the film. She's in every scene, and she won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress.
Wow. There's
she's
so many
in the
things
whole
about
movie
that are just like, we're talking about a 10-year-old, right? You said she's 10 years old?
10 years old. She wins the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. She's in every scene of the movie.
That's so wild. All of that is all just a lot. I mean, to unpack.
I think if they're that young, I guess you could say they're supporting because the person she works with in the movie is like a big star. So you could say, well, she's supporting him. But if you're in every scene of a movie, I think you should be in lead.
I know.
But so that was cool that Eddie Albert got in, and that a movie like this got 2 nominations. I would have liked maybe rewarding the screenplay too, like maybe getting a screenplay nomination would have been worthy for this.
That's what I thought it was going to be, one of the more like technical nominations.
But this feels like it's like one of my favorite screenplay nominations, Bridesmaids. Got an Oscar nomination for Best Screenplay.
Love Bridesmaids.
So this feels like the kind of romantic comedy that's got a sharp script like that. I don't think Elaine May would have been recognized for the direction, because there's nothing really like that stands out, right? When you're watching it, you're like, wow, the direction of the, but like this, like the dialogue and the screenplay is like really creative and goes in directions you don't expect. So I think that would have been probably on the cusp of being nominated. But at the Golden Globes, Charles Grodin, your favorite part of this movie, the main character, he was nominated for Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. And then, and at the Globes, it did get a screenplay nomination for Neil Simon.
There we go.
So it did get in at one of the ceremonies. And then won a couple Critics Awards for Berlin. That's about it. But I mean, most romantic comedies don't place at awards. Yeah. Like maybe like MTV Movie Awards and People's Choice Award. Right.
Yeah.
Like my all-time favorite, Sandra Bullock. I loved her in The Lost City, but I'm like, she's not
yet.
Oh, you haven't seen The Lost City?
No,
it's so much fun.
I know it's on digital now, so I need to watch it. I've been dying to watch that one.
She's my favorite, and she hasn't done like a comedy really since The Heat with Melissa McCarthy in 2013. Lost City was like her first like comedy that she's made. I mean, you could say Ocean's 8 has some comedic elements in it, but really her first comedy in almost a decade is The Lost City. And I'm watching, I'm like, well, she's not going to get an Oscar nomination for this, but maybe she'll get in somewhere. And then I just saw they just released like a week ago the nominations for the People's Choice Awards, and Sandra's on the list. Yeah, like that's it. That's all she can get for that one. But that's okay. No, if you like Sandra Bullock at all, like watch The Lost City.
And she's like an author.
She's an author.
Right? Yeah, I'm.
She's like a romantic. She writes romance books, and Channing Tatum is like her model for her book covers, and Daniel Radcliffe is the villain. Yeah, and it's just like it's a wild ride. Brad Pitt is hilarious in an extended cameo. It's really fun.
I've gotta watch.
But yeah, romantic comedies. Outside of like One in a Blue Moon really don't get recognized at the Oscars. So I think it's kind of cool that this one got in. I think the movie coming out in December helped, like having it be at the end of the year. If this had come out in like April, like I don't know if it would have gotten that, but
the staying power.
Yeah. So the critics loved it. Roger Ebert gave it 3.5 stars. It currently has a 92% of Rotten Tomatoes. People really love this movie. Like it's up there. And then the last piece of trivia is the remake. So, do we remember much about it?
I don't remember much at all. I mean, I just remember it was Ben Stiller. I really couldn't tell you much about it.
Probably like the best thing about the remake is that it keeps the title alive to maybe some people. If there wasn't the 2007 remake, I don't know how many people today would know of the Heartbreak Kid, because as I forgot to mention, it's very difficult to find this movie streaming. A company called Bristol Myers Squibb, a pharmaceutical company, obtained the rights to the movie many years ago, and then the company dissolved. So
a pharmaceutical company
somehow got involved with the Heartbreak Kid from 72. The company dissolved, and so the movie's distribution rights have remained in limbo ever since. So the movie, the one we watched, it was on YouTube and not great quality, right? The quality was just so.
Yeah, it was fine.
But this is, I don't think this is a film that's going to just, be on Blu-ray everywhere and you can find it on Netflix or Hulu or something. This is kind of an obscure movie in that it's hard to track down if you're not.
That's interesting.
So thankfully someone posted it to YouTube.
Yeah, I think I know.
It wasn't
I didn't even try
on
to find it
YouTube.
because you sent the link, so I got lucky. But I would.
It wasn't on YouTube. I don't know. So I found that interesting too. This is not a movie that's just readily available for everyone to see. So I guess if there's something good about the remake, is that it kind of keeps that title and that premise alive a little bit. Although I don't think a lot of people really liked it. Like I remember I watched it and I don't really remember it that much. So I don't think it made much of an impression.
I don't. It is a chapter title in my book, The Heartbreak Kid, one of them, because all of the chapter titles are all rom-coms. But I mean, I really I didn't remember much about the actual movie for that one. I the title fit. Most of them in the movie actually make sense, but that one I was like, I remember the movie.
When you chose that as a title for a chapter, you were referring to the Ben Stiller movie, right?
Yeah, I didn't know that it was a remake.
That's
which is interesting. I mean, there's so many movies like that I didn't realize were remakes because there are people who picked up your book and read your book and got to that and thought of the 72 movie and not the 07. Which is great. I love that. No, I love that.
That happened. That's awesome. But I mean, it was a big movie. Ben Stiller is the star of it, and it was directed by the Farrelly brothers. If there's something about Mary and Kingpin and Dumb and Dumber and these great directors, it just was not one of their better efforts, I would say. My only memory is Malin. Is that how you say her name? Malin Ackerman. I think that's how you say her name. She's kind of one of those actresses that's always kind of underrated. Like she's not winning awards and stuff, but she's always a great addition to a film and a cast. And I remember her performance, which is the Berlin Lila character. I think that's the only part of it I kind of vaguely remember, that she was funny and that they pushed it much. They pushed it much harder in the remake of her being psycho and crazy.
Yes. I remember that. Yeah.
And so I was waiting for that. I'm like, okay, Gina Berlin, she got an Oscar nomination. She's the supporting actress. Like she's the Ackerman role. So I was kind of surprised watching the 72 version. Like she's not as crazy as I was expecting. Like she's got her moments.
Didn't have to be, because Lenny was brought enough to the table, I think.
But so sometimes I say so what would this movie look like 50 years later? And we kind of get it with the 07 remake. I'm not in any mood at the moment to go and watch it. Like I thought about it. I'm like, should I watch it? But I'm like,
I'm a little curious.
I'm kind of like, does the 07 version end the same way as this one does? Like, does he marry the girl he meets on vacation on this honeymoon? Something tells me like an 07 audience would not really go for the way that the 72 version plays out.
No, I don't think so.
Be curious to see.
Huh.
I just vaguely remember Ackerman is a lot crazier in the remake.
Yeah, I remember what I remember from the movie are a lot of her scenes, her comedic scenes. Yeah.
And Ben Stiller just looking like, made a mistake.
Yes.
So I'd have to go back to give the full review, but I think if you're going to watch one of them, I'd say go with the 72 version. It's just like a really interesting movie, and definitely one of the better ones I've watched of the podcast in recent weeks. So that takes us to the final two segments, Robby. The first one is the Divine Double Feature. Did you pick a modern film that we could pair this with? Like, what would you, as soon as this ends, like, what's a more modern movie that you would pair the Heartbreak Kid with?
So I thought of one, and then I realized I don't know if it's modern because I don't remember the year. It might have been
that's
like
okay.
90s.
It doesn't have to be.
But
yeah, 90s.
I really thought of, and funny enough, it's a Ben Stiller movie, but I really thought of Along Came Polly, because
Oh, okay.
that
Mhm.
dynamic of like being on your honeymoon and then someone being swept away by someone else, and then in that
Oh,
movie
that's
I
mhm.
thought it was going to be like what you said, where I thought he was going to go back to her and then she was going to have moved on. I thought that was going to happen like it did in Along Came Polly
Okay.
when is it it's Deborah Messing, right? Isn't
Deborah
that who,
Messing. So
isn't
he that's
she?
right. At
Yeah.
the
And
beginning,
she like
doesn't he
comes
marry her?
back. Yeah, he marries
Yeah.
her and then she loves the scuba guy, and then
Yeah.
she comes
Hank
back and
Azaria.
he's like, I'm done with it. And so I'm a big Jennifer Aniston fan. So I was like,
Yes, me too.
quickly that when I was thinking of it, I was like, this is like very similar vibes. And of course it's Ben Stiller, which is so random that it's, it's
Yeah, who's
everywhere, I
in
guess,
the
at this
Heartbreak
time.
Kid 3 years
Yeah.
later. So Along Came Polly is 2004.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I love
So
that movie.
so that's a fun one. And it opens with he marries Deborah Messing and they're on their honeymoon, right? And he
Hmm.
goes in, was it like on a boat? And
Yeah,
he
he's
catches
gonna take her
her
scuba diving.
and he catches her with this guy.
Yeah.
And so does he like fly home alone? He's like on the airplane, like
Hmm.
sad.
Yeah.
But then he meets Jennifer Aniston's character, and she plays a kind of like a wild, kind of
Yeah,
unpredictable
she's like
character in the movie.
boho, can't be tamed, wild child. This
And I
does her
love
thing.
the ensemble cast in that movie. Philip Seymour Hoffman is
Hmm.
hilarious in that
Yes,
film. He
so
didn't do
funny in that.
comedies very often, and he's really funny in that one.
Yes.
That's a great choice. I went with something very brand new. I just thought it'd be cool to pair a 50-year-old romantic comedy with a brand new modern romantic comedy. And
Yeah.
one of my favorite films of the year is Bros. Did you see
I
Bros?
didn't see Bros yet. I
Oh,
know.
it's
I need to
so
watch
good.
it. Okay, I need to see it.
Don't let the box office deter you because the movie bombed hard. It opened with
I
like
saw
four or
that.
five
No, but I
million
do want to
dollars.
watch it. I do want to see it.
It's so I saw it with a crowd in a crowded theater on a Saturday, and it's such a beautiful movie. It's very funny.
Okay,
Like I
good.
want to say there's like 10 to 15 huge laughs, like very
Okay.
funny, and it's sweet and it's real. It's not and it's real. It's actual gay actors playing gay
Yeah.
characters, which I really appreciated. You don't see that. That was really cool. And it's a studio movie. So they
Yeah.
have the
No, I
budget. It
definitely
looks great.
I need to see it.
I just thought it'd be an interesting experiment to compare a 50-year-old romantic comedy with a brand new one. A gay film, like that's just like kind
Mm,
of pushing boundaries and like showing what we can do with the genre now. Because I mean,
yeah.
how many studio gay comedies do we get?
Yeah, there's
It's
not a
like,
lot. Although I did see, I think there's like two, I don't know if you saw this, there's like two Hallmark gay
oh
Christmas
right,
movies coming out or
Christmas
something
movies.
like that. I don't know if they're Hallmark, maybe not. I'm not sure what they are, but they're
Yeah,
maybe Netflix or something, but they're like that vibe of, the Christmas rom-com.
yeah. So that's something. And
That's good.
there was Love, Simon, which I really
Yes.
enjoyed from a few years ago.
Hmm.
So until they make your book into a movie, Robbie, which is
I know. I'm
it's
trying to.
soon, right?
I wish.
Next year.
I wish.
Let's get the cast together. Come on.
Yeah.
I just think that
That is smart though. I like that, like the comparison.
like
That's two
comparing
very
like
different. Yeah.
where do we look at the evolution of a subgenre like that? Like it'd be cool to look at kind of two very very different takes on the genre by two different filmmakers over 50 years would be an interesting experiment. So if there's anyone out there who watches the Heartbreak Kid from 72 and Bros back to back, let me
Oh
know
yeah.
how it goes. I would love to
Tag
hear
me in
about
a
it.
tweet too, because I want to know.
All right, that takes us to our final segment. We have not talked about the romantic comedy genre really very much at all on the podcast, so I thought we'd end with just some of our favorites. So I know it's really tough with this one because there's
Mhm.
tons of great movies, but like if you could only take 3 romantic comedies to a desert island, you could only take 3, like what would be the ones that you could not live without?
Is it I'm on the desert island like forever? Like these are my last 3 movies forever.
These are it. You can only take 3.
Um, okay, I'm only not gonna say The Holiday because I already said it at the beginning of the podcast. So
Okay,
I'm gonna
you've already
I'm gonna pick
taken that
other
one.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say um
Like what are ones that
oh,
you love?
oh, I can't decide between When Harry Met Sally or You've Got Mail or Sleepless in Seattle. Which Meg Ryan movie do I
Which
take?
make
Because I feel like I
Ryan
gotta
you
pick one Meg Ryan movie. I think it would be
Kate and Leopold.
When Harry Met Sally. Oh, that one. Oh, God. Okay. Okay. All right. When Harry Met Sally.
Okay.
Something's Gotta Give.
Mm.
And
Yeah,
I
we have
wanna
to bring
take, like,
Diane
a
Keaton.
I know. Oh, yeah, of course. I wanna take like an Audrey Hepburn one, but I
Oh, like
already
an
said
older
Breakfast
one?
at Tiffany's. Yeah, so maybe either
Roman
Paris When It
Holiday.
Sizzles or Roman Holiday. I love Roman Holiday. Yeah.
her Oscar-winning role in Roman Holiday. Love that movie. Gregory Peck. Sabrina is wonderful too. Have you seen Sabrina?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, I love Sabrina. Yes.
Audrey Hepburn's career is fascinating to me because she just bursts onto the scene. Like, I think she's like in a very bit role in a couple things before Roman Holiday, but she just like bursts onto the scene.
Yeah.
Huge hit, Oscar win for Best Actress, followed immediately by Sabrina. And then we're just off and running. And from 53 to 67, she's just this huge star. She's in all of these great movies. I love the last two she makes before she goes on retirement. She went on retirement for a while, I think, to raise her kids, have a family. But she
then ended up she said she wanted to do it because she traveled so much, and then ended up just traveling to help kids around the world, which I thought was really sweet.
Which I've seen those videos. It's wonderful. Yeah. But like, she's mostly known for, like, you know, comedies and, you know, some dramas. But have you seen Wait Until Dark from 67?
Yes,
the horror film.
Wait Until Dark. When he reaches her out, I love that movie. He jumps at her.
When Alan Arkin jumps out of the shadows, it's
oh my gosh,
still
I love that movie. I always tell people that. I'm like, you need to watch this movie because it is actually terrifying, but it's like it's just like, it's not like nowadays where it relies on other things. Like, it's literally just terrifying. The concept itself is terrifying. Ugh, so good.
And then, did you see her other film from that year, Two for the Road, with Albert Finney?
Yes,
that's another good one.
Yeah,
I just saw that for the first time like 2 years ago, and I loved it. So that run is amazing. And then she's in a couple things after that, like every 7 years, like she shows up in a little something. But like that, after 67, she was on to other things. And some actors do that.
Yeah,
you know, and it's almost like
icon.
Icon. It's almost like sometimes when actors do that, it keeps our memory of them alive from when they were younger, and like that really pivotal kind of early part of their career. And that's what when we think of her, we think of Roman Holiday, Sabrina, Breakfast at Tiffany's, Wait Until Dark. We don't really think of like her performance in Spielberg's Always.
Or A Nun Story or whatever. Like,
or that Robin Hood movie she's in with with Chuck Connery.
So my Audrey movie would be Funny Face. That would be my third
Funny
one.
Face. Yes, I believe I've seen you've shared some of that on Instagram, right?
Yes,
Funny Face.
That. Oh yeah,
have I seen Funny Face? I'm trying to think. It sounds familiar. I'd have to go back.
She works in a bookstore, and they like discover her as a model and take her to Paris, and then she doesn't want to be a model because she's an intellectual and she wants to meet a professor. So
this sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's so good. So and it's a musical, so they like sing and dance, and so good.
Yeah, I'm gonna add that to my list.
Pictures in Paris because I love Funny Face so much. So
because she's just wonderful. That you have to take something with Audrey Hepburn.
Yeah,
I just shared a tweet today about her earlier, totally unrelated to our conversation. So once a day on Twitter, I share an Oscar nomination I love from years past. And today I shared, I did not know she was nominated for Best Actress for Sabrina, her second film. Like, she won for Roman Holiday, and then she was nominated the next year for Sabrina. So
I mean,
Sabrina's wonderful.
Obviously. Yeah. Leon Rose. I love Sabrina.
So so you named some really good ones. So
so what are yours? Do you have your three?
Yeah. So my three are Notting Hill.
So good.
Which I guess I agree with Anne Hathaway. That movie is amazing. I remember I got so much shit when I was in, I was in 8th grade, and I wanted to see that weekend Notting Hill, not Star Wars, The Phantom Menace. And my male friends were like, why?
You're like, Julia Roberts is like amazing.
And I'm like, it's Julia Roberts, and she plays an actress who falls in love with like a common guy, and it sounds, it's the team that did 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Yeah.
And
that also that
sadly,
trope wasn't that popular then either, you know? Like, I mean, I know maybe it was, I don't know, I feel like it wasn't. Now it's like a very popular trope, but that was not I can't think of a lot of like movies before that where that was the thing that happened.
Like, when I was 14, I wanted to see Notting Hill and not Star Wars, and
I love that.
7 years later, when I came out to my dad, he had no idea.
Well, sometimes
I'm like, Dad, what about Notting Hill? Like, this was an important moment. I convinced my mom to go see it, and I remember sitting there. I just loved every minute of it. That scene where she goes to his sister's birthday party, and she walks in and everybody has their moment of like, oh my God. Like, and except for the friend or the guy who doesn't know who she is, and he's like, oh, you're an actress, splendid. What how much money did you make on your last film?
Oh,
Does she say 10 or 20? I can't remember. 10 or 20 million dollars.
I don't know. Don't quote me on it. I'm not sure.
I think
been
she
forever.
says
I've
10.
seen that movie. I've only seen that movie like
I think she
3
says 10. I
times.
think she says
Say
$10
like
million.
3.
And he says, well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's just so I love her chemistry with Hugh Grant. And it's just a beautiful story, well told, very funny screenplay by Richard Curtis. So that would be my third favorite. My second favorite is Groundhog Day.
Oh, that's okay.
Which I
Okay.
guess that one you could say it's kind of like it's not just a romantic comedy. It's also like a science fiction film in a way. But it really, at the heart of that movie, is the romantic comedy between Bill Murray and Andie MacDowell and their love story, and him spending 10,000 years, which that's what I read. That's the screenwriter said he spent 10,000 days trying to basically capture her love. Like,
that makes sense.
it's
that's a great movie.
such a warm and creative and funny comedy, and probably my favorite Bill Murray performance. And Andie MacDowell is an actress I've always adored. I think she's way too underrated. I love her, and that's just one of her great movies and performances. And so Groundhog Day would definitely be on the list. And then my favorite romantic comedy of all time since I was in high school is When Harry Met Sally. That movie
so we
is
both brought that
perfect.
Right? I think, yeah. Okay.
That is a perfect movie. I love it. It's so good.
Absolutely love that movie.
It's like, and it's a movie that could have just gone wrong. Like so many things, especially opening it with like, okay, here's them in college. Here's a scene of them 5 years later on a plane. And then here, we're going to go forward another 5 years and just kind of explore how they become friends. And then they sleep together and then they're not friends anymore. And then they fall in love. It could have been really like just like the tone just being a little bit off.
Yeah, I think it's
but it works.
Well, they're both great, but I feel like I love Meg Ryan. Like, I think she's just like magical in that movie. You know, like something about her, like the way she delivers lines and her charisma, it's just she's so lovable, and she has that like innocence that she kind of, but then you learn she's like also smart, and she also isn't just as innocent as I feel like she sets the tone, honestly. But of course he plays off of her and it's very equal, but I'm just a big Meg Ryan fan, so
all of her quirks are so funny, the way she orders a sandwich and all of that. And Billy Crystal, who I feel like, you know, if we're not talking about When Harry Met Sally, we don't really think of him as a romantic comedy lead actor,
right,
but he just fit that role so well. And I don't know what it was, but their chemistry is
he would
electric.
have been good with someone like, if with someone else, I think I would have been annoyed by him.
Could have been boring. Could have been a boring movie if like the Meg Ryan character had been played by a different actress, or if he had been played by a more kind of standard, you know, romantic comedy actor or something. It like everything fell together there.
Yeah.
Like the screenplay by Nora Ephron is just immaculate. It's so funny.
The best.
And then Rob Reiner kind of collaborated with her a little bit on the script, and then he directed the movie, and he brought some of what he knew to the film and she brought what she knew, and it was kind of a collaboration between the two. And then they just got the right cast for it. I love Carrie Fisher. It's really funny in the movie.
Oh my God. She's like, he's not gonna leave her. And then she's like, I know. Like every single time they hit that beat like 3-4 times, I think, and it's hilarious every time.
That split screen scene where like they get the phone call from both Meg Ryan and Billy Crystal, and it plays out in one shot, and they're just in the middle, like listening on the phone.
That's so good. What's your favorite scene? Do you have a favorite scene?
Oh God, I mean, obviously up there is the famous scene of her faking the orgasm. Yes. I mean, that scene is great, and that's Rob Reiner, the director's mom, who says, "I'll have what she's having."
Oh, really?
Which always makes that moment funnier to me, that's the director's mom who says that.
Oh, that is funny. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's great. Gosh, I mean, honestly, like revisiting the movie so many times, it really is the ending that always gets me. Is him running to her on New Year's Eve, and that speech he gives her, which again could have just come off as saccharine and forced, and it just plays perfectly. And I don't
I
know
know.
how they did that. Like you
I'm
really
telling you,
feel
they just are
the
magical
warmth.
together. I don't know how it works, but
Yeah.
so good. Because
I,
even in the beginning, like I feel, even when they're just in the car together and they have the like back and forth of like cannot, can to, cannot, can to, and they do that thing that like would be so annoying for other actors to do, because they do that a lot in the movie, you know, where they do that like does not, does to, does not, does to. Like it
mhm.
would just be so grating, but like they're just so lovable and cute when they do it that you're like, okay, it works. You know, I don't know,
Yeah.
those little things that just you would just be driven crazy by other actors doing, but somehow they just make everything great.
It's just everything about it I love, and I love that it's 90 minutes long. It does not overstay its welcome. I think a 2-hour version of When Harry Met Sally would be too much. I
Mm-hmm.
think the 90 minutes is perfect for that movie. I mean,
Yeah,
maybe a couple extra scenes would have been fine, but like I think the length of it is also a reason why I love it. It does not overstay its welcome, which I think is
true,
important for a movie like that.
true.
So that's definitely my favorite. I also love, It Happened One Night, the Philadelphia Story, Harold and Maude,
Philadelphia Story, I love.
Sleepless in Seattle. You've Got Mail is real.
Mm-hmm.
That was right before Notting Hill. Notting Hill was May of 99. You've Got Mail was December of 98. And so that was the movie. I want to say that was the first film of Meg Ryan's I saw. I was familiar
Was
with
You've
Tom.
Got Mail?
You've Got Mail was like
Mm-hmm.
the first. I saw that before When Harry Met Sally. And again, about books, booksellers, and
Mm-hmm.
the world of books is always it's always something I love in stories and in films, and her having this small like children's bookstore, and it's
Oh
being
yeah,
taken over by the
the
one
big
thing
bad
about You've
wolf.
Got Mail is like the last 30 minutes is a little bit like he basically shoves her out of her business,
I know that. You
but
know
then
what? I
they get
literally
together.
cry every time I've seen that movie a million times, but every time she watches like her and her mom dance in the
Yeah.
bookstore, it like makes me tear up. I can't. I'm like he needs to give her the store back,
Yeah.
and
But
then
the
we'll be
early
fine.
scenes of that movie are magical, where it's like you
Mhm.
got the Cranberries' Dreams playing,
Yes,
and you just see New York in the fall, and Tom
the
Hanks is
pumpkin.
narrating about like sharpened pencils and getting coffee, and just the whole vibe of that
Hmm.
movie is my jam. I just
It's
really
so
love
good.
it. So
I
that's a
love
good
that
one
movie.
too. And then as you said, Something's Gotta Give is great too. I don't think like Something's Gotta Give, I feel like it's too long.
See,
But
I know it's long, but like I put that movie on all the time. I mean, any Nancy Meyers
it's
movie I
really,
just put
yeah.
on
Nancy
for like
Myers is
comfort.
great.
Yeah, but
Her
that
all of
movie,
her movies are long, and you just kind of go with it.
yeah,
Uh,
you just roll with it. I
do you
just
like It's Complicated with Meryl Streep?
love
And
It's
that
Complicated.
was
I
good
think
too.
I could literally like
Just live in
quote
her
back
world.
all three of, and The Intern and Home Again. Like any Nancy Meyers movie, I could probably like say the words with the actors on the screens at this point. Like that's how they're just like, if I need comfort, or even if I don't and I just need to put something on, I just, yeah, I know. Like I
Yes.
literally think I could, you know how people are like those annoying people who watch the movie and like say what the actors, I think I could do that for the horror movies.
Yeah, Something's Gotta Give. It's just I love seeing her with Jack Nicholson. They're just so great in
Yes,
that movie. And what an ensemble cast you have! Like Frances McDormand, Keanu Reeves is
I know.
so handsome and charming, falling in love with the older Diane Keaton in that movie. I love that's such a great little
Hmm.
story in that movie.
It's
And
so good.
yeah, Nancy Myers, her work is great. So there's just a lot of great movies of this subgenre, and we just named just a handful of them,
Just a
of like the
few.
great ones.
Did you see the new movie that's coming out called Something from Tiffany's? Because I think that looks really cute, and I feel like it's
No,
gonna
what's this?
be. So
Is
it's
it
all I know.
theatrical?
It's from actually it might not. I think it's a
Okay.
Netflix.
Oh,
But
Netflix. Okay.
it's from Reese Witherspoon's production company, and
Okay.
it's Zoe Deutsch. Is that how you say her name? Zoe
Oh, right.
Dutch.
Hmm.
Dutch or Deutsch, I'm not sure, but she's the main character. I think it actually might be ensemble. I just know it's like two couples where basically they both like one buys earrings and one buys an engagement ring, and they get
Hmm.
switched at Tiffany's, and so they like the wrong, obviously the guy's like, oh, I didn't buy an engagement ring, and the other one's like, oh, that was supposed to be an engagement ring, and so it's kind of like them trying to find their way to each other. Just looks really cute, like a little, mixed matched love
It
story
it
for the
is a
holidays.
it is a genre I'd say that we don't see as much anymore. Like
I know, we
especially
need more.
theatrically. Like maybe we see it more often like on Netflix and streaming, but in a theater, like we don't see romantic comedies as much as we used to, which is sad to me because
Mm-mm.
it's a great when done well, it can be a lot
Yeah.
of fun and very heartwarming and just makes you feel good when you walk out of the theater. but I feel like we don't get them as much. I don't think they do that well at the box office. So, a lot of studio heads just go to other genres as, to make their money. But I'm always hopeful, when we get some more. And
Nancy Meyers is doing a Netflix ensemble movie, I think. So
is she finally directing another movie? It's been a while.
Yeah, she had a deal that came out a few months ago, I think. So yeah, hopefully.
Okay.
Fingers crossed.
That would be fun, because I loved her run of Something's Gotta Give, The Holiday, and It's Complicated.
Yeah.
All three I saw with my mom. All three we love.
Yeah, same. And I don't know, did you like The Intern? I loved The Intern.
I like The Intern.
Less popular, but I loved it.
I saw
Robert De Niro. I mean, come on, like Anne Hathaway. Like,
yeah, no, that one was good. I just saw it the once. I've never seen it since. I saw it not in theaters, but when it came out on, I want to say, Blu-ray, and I rented it and I liked it, but I haven't really thought about it since. I don't really think of it in the same way as I do her
more modern, different.
Her more like romantic comedy films of the 2000s. I kind of put those all in like one package.
Yeah, no,
but she's great.
Yeah,
I know she gets. I feel like she gets some hate in film Twitter and from some critical circles, like Nancy Meyers.
No. Don't tell me.
I feel like some people don't like her stuff. I love Nancy Meyers stuff. Like I'll always go to bat for her. Very good, Robby. That takes us to the end here today. It was so much fun to talk to you about the Heartbreak Kid.
So much fun.
If you want to go back into our archives, we talked about Beauty and the Beast for an hour and a half on its 30th anniversary about a year ago. Robby was on that episode. That was such a delight to talk that movie. We went through every scene of that movie.
That was fun. That was really fun.
How do you feel about Angela Lansbury passing away just about a month ago? I was so kind of surprisingly broken up about it that I made a whole video about her career on my YouTube channel, Brian Wrote Video, called Angela Lansbury and the Elusive Oscar. And I spent a week researching her life and her career and her films. And I wrote a piece about her, and I record my own audio. And I got to the end, and I end the video with this like love letter to her. And I talk about like how much she meant to, like, not just me, but like, audiences in general of film, of television, of theater. She did everything over 80 years. And I got choked up while recording the audio. And at the end of the video, you hear me like choking up, and I couldn't hide it, because I just was like, not to say that it's, I mean, she was 96. She lived a very long, full life, but it's sad when someone like that goes that you appreciate and you respect so much. I mean, she just was one of the greats. So I think we'll miss her a lot. And her contribution to Beauty and the Beast is huge. Like, she's a great part of that movie, and that's my favorite Disney animated film. So that was a fun chat we had about a year ago. So go check that out. As we get to the end here, Robby, I'd love for you to promote your books. Talk about your books. I read your book last summer. It's so wonderful. If you change your mind, your debut novel, right?
Yes.
If you can talk about your book a little bit, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So If You Change Your Mind it's a young adult contemporary rom-com, queer. So it's basically just, I really wanted to write like a summer beach read, with the like Nancy Meyers vibe, of course. Just kind of cozy and like mostly upbeat and joyful. And so it's about a 17-year-old boy who wants to be a screenwriter, and he has gone through his first heartbreak, and he is determined to win a screenwriting competition and ignore boys, because what good can they lead to? And then, of course, there's plenty of boys. His ex is back in town, and there's a new guy who's in town who's really cute and sweet. And it's just kind of, I feel like a story about like finding yourself and being able to believe in love. And, I really wanted to write like an ambitious teen too, because I think teens have a lot going on, and I think that they're thinking a lot about the future,
right?
And for a young adult audience, I want them to be able to kind of see themselves and see that. So
I just thought it was one of a kind, because it blended two things you don't see very often, like a queer young adult romantic comedy, but also about a wannabe screenwriter, someone who wants to go into the film industry. I feel like, I mean, that was like capturing me to a T, because I was writing scripts when I was in high school. And so it was, I very much related to your story and the way it plays out. You're very, very sharp writing, really great characters, and it's just such a wonderful read. And I hope, you all check it out. It's really fun if you change your mind. And you've got a few more coming, right?
Yes. So I have I Like Me Better, which comes out May 2nd, 2023.
I love that title. That's great. May of 23.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's 2023. But that one is, so it's set in the same. So if you change your mind, it takes place in the fictional town of Citrus Harbor, Florida. It's very like, idyllic beach town. And so I Like Me Better is kind of like the next class, if you will, like the grade below. And it's about a boy who wants to be the soccer captain for his senior year, and he's kind of like coming into being the popular kid. He's like the homecoming prince. Everybody loves him. And so the boy that he looks up to the most is the graduating captain, and he pulls a prank and might lose his spot at Duke. So the main character takes the fall and has to do community service for the summer. And it's kind of about like figuring out, yourself, who are you? How are you confident? What's worth, is it worth taking the fall for other people, for things, for them to like you, and all those kinds of things. And it's set at a marine conservation center. So there's a lot of fun stuff with that. So a very beachy summer read again.
That's awesome. Are one of the upcoming books going to be like a winter read, like a Christmas read?
Not yet, but I do want to do that. That. But the third one is it's a New York book, but it's also
cool.
It takes place like the first week of June, so it's also summer.
Okay. No, we can be summers. Hey, that's the time of the year that we're doing the most reading, so it makes sense that we'd set our stories during the summer.
Summer love, summer romance. But yeah, I do want to write like a Christmas or holiday story or something, so we'll see, maybe one day.
So it's kind of a shared universe a little bit in this
they all
upcoming one. They all are of the same universe.
Four total right now, and they're all in the same
will universe. We see characters from one book appear in the other?
He will. Some favorites.
Is Harry in the new one?
Harry is not, but
there's shared supporting. That's really cool. It's like
your
own little Marvel
there
universe.
Are cameos that people, if you change your mind, will really enjoy, and I Like Me Better, and in the third one as well.
That's so cool. So it's kind of like Stephen King does that with his books, which he doesn't really write sequels, but a lot of his themes and characters will kind of like overlap, and will the character will all of a sudden appear in a city that we read about in a book he wrote 7 years ago, and that kind of a shared universe. That's really cool. I also was really
the Stephen King paranormal stuff going on, but yes.
Yeah. But that idea of kind of having shared universes while not writing a direct sequel, I think is really interesting. I like that idea rather than just having it be a long series, like kind of doing a shared universe and some similar themes, but telling different stories about different people. That's really cool.
It's a lot of fun. And like this time around, editing the second one and already writing the third and fourth, I was able to kind of put things in the second one, and there are things in the first one that but there's little things that like I know that if you go back and look, you're like, oh wait, that restaurant in the second one plays a big part in the third one, and it's like such a small line, but I don't know, that kind of stuff is really fun. So
that's cool, and it will also get your readers who might discover you on your second or your third book to go back and say, oh, there's like a shared universe with this first book or something maybe they had missed early on. It'll make them want to go back and read your other stuff because it's like a shared genre, shared universe. That's a good idea. I like that.
Hopefully, as the summers progress, the teens or whoever wants to, I mean, it's a young adult, but whoever enjoys it, hopefully they'll like pick up more, the summer Robby Weber books.
I also liked using the screenplay in your book. Was that something that you were doing when you wrote it for like when you started writing it, or did you add in the screenplay bits later?
Yeah, that was something I did. It wasn't the first draft, but as I was like trying to get an agent, I kind of was looking, I had like a revise and resubmit and changed a lot of things and added, actually, no, I think it was like the second draft. So before even I was trying to get an agent, I added that, but it was really difficult and something that is really funny. I mean, I know they say don't read the reviews, but like people have very strong opinions about it, and they think it's not that well written, which it's like funny because it's like it's supposed to being
written
like
by a 17-year-old.
Yeah, and so it's kind of like I want to be like, you guys, like it's supposed to be
it's not going to be be like a beautifully written screenplay if he's 17.
Well, now when people like, I was just on a podcast and with Zibby Owens, and she's like, "Do you want to write screenplays?" I'm like, "Yes, I would love to." And let me also preface by saying I can write a better screenplay than the one that's, and if you change your mind, I mean, like, But
You
yeah,
won't
no,
you
it was
won't
really
send
fun.
that as your sample if
That would
someone's
not be
looking
my
for your
sample,
screen.
no.
Have
But
you
I
written
mean, I
a full
still think it's
screenplay?
fun. I haven't. I want
Okay.
to. Because I have some ideas that I think wouldn't translate as easily into a novel because
Right.
I like writing first person characters, and if they're I don't know, there's some complications with that. So sometimes it might be easier to like write it onto the screenplay, but rather than being in their head during a book. So yeah, I have ideas, but just only so many hours
There's
in a
only
day,
so many hours in a day. You have to be on film at 50. There's not enough time to write your screenplay.
No, this is great. More of this. This is fantastic.
Anywhere our listeners can find you online, can you share that for us?
Yes, all my social media is Robby Reads. So
Okay.
Instagram and Twitter. I mean, I try to do TikTok. It's so hard, but it's like
I tried.
I feel like I'm just not, I do not have the skill set. And then my website is robbyweber.com, and that has like all my information on my books and all that. So,
but you do great videos and you have a huge Instagram following. So that like you're doing well there.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's still tough because I feel like even when I started Instagram, it was like pictures, and now it's like do reels. And I'm like, okay,
Reels.
I'm trying to figure out reels. But yeah, no, it's still fun. It's fun. And it's a really nice community that I'm really grateful to have. So yeah.
Well, this has been a pleasure, Robby, to have you on Film at 50 today to talk to Heartbreak Kid. And again, I ask all of you to go check out If You Change Your Mind. It's a great read, and you'll have a really fun time with it. And this has just been a pleasure, Robby. A lot of fun. And I'd love to have you on again. If there's a movie in 73 that interests you, let me know.
I'm here. Let me know.
And maybe a bonus episode too down the road. If there's like an anniversary of some really great romantic comedy, that could be fun.
Okay.
Too.
Yeah. I'm always in to talk about a rom-com, so don't have to ask me twice.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for being here, Robby. Thanks to all of you for listening. You can find us online at filmat50.com. We're on Twitter and Instagram. And until next time, remember, 50 never looked this good.